Light.
Go to the light, what?
Into the
Don't go
light.
to the light.
Okay, welcome everyone to the January 23rd, 2020 Chaska Human Rights Commission meeting. First meeting of the year and the decade, so welcome everyone. We'll start with Nate calling the roll.
Commissioner Scarborough?
Here.
Commissioner Spreadbury?
Here.
Commissioner Dunbar is absent tonight. Commissioner Carlson?
Present.
Commissioner Welbert?
Here.
Commissioner Bean?
Here.
Commissioner Haga?
Here.
And Commissioner White.
Here.
All right.
Okay. Item number 3 is open forum guest presentation, and doesn't look like we have a big crowd.
Didn't
tonight.
adopt the agenda, Madam Chair.
Oh, item 2.
I said, ooh.
I haven't been here a while, sorry. Okay, item 2, we all have our agendas in front of us. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. And we still don't have a big crowd out there, so we are going to move past guest presentation tonight and take a look at November 21st meeting minutes. If everyone thinks that they look good and we don't have changes, then do I have a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from November 21st?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries, and we'll move on to the treasurer's report from Nate.
All right, so to wrap out 2019, or close out 2019, we had in November we had no new expenses. December we had the reimbursement to Jenna Cruz for the play that will be hosted this spring at the community center. So that was for the reservation at the community center, $227.50. We had the MLK Event Center service charge, so the fee for reserving the event center and the services there, $246.96. And then we had a reimbursement to Stacy Nelson Kumar for the Race Power of Illusion series that she put on and incurred expenses for $264.24, which left us with a balance in 2019 of $807.93 unspent.
I wanted to talk about that a little bit because we had kind of earmarked some money for the farmer's market last year, and then that did not work out for the entertainment at the farmer's market. So I feel like if we had thought we were going to have more money to work with, then we may have found something else to work with it. And that just seemed like a high number to me and I was trying to figure out why we hadn't spent the money that was available. So, I think this year we can continue to use it on different programs and stuff in the community.
Yep.
And
Yep, yeah, each year we start at 2,000 is the amount, so unspent dollars unfortunately don't carry over. But, so yeah, now we've got a new balance to begin. 2020 with 2,000, but we have incurred some expenses in January related to the MLK event this past Monday. So we had a bill from Red Bench Bakery for the bakery items, $170.10. El Paisano for their bakery items, $52.50.
How much?
$52.50.
$52.
Yep. Juice acquired by Commissioner Welbert that she'll be reimbursed for, $22.45. And then Les Dahlberg is the person who puts the Human Rights Award plaque together and then also updates the plaque that's in the hallway for each year. So that's $70 for that.
The year before then, we must have expensed that
onto, like,
We might have had that
2000
expense in the 20.
because there's nothing in January for 2018.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can, well, we must have ordered that in
So
2020.
these items have been paid for this month. Yep. Yep. So right now, we've got a balance of $1,684.95.
So if I just did my arithmetic correctly, it was about $315 worth of expenses.
I got the same number,
Did you?
approximately.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 170, the 52, the 22, and the 70.
315.05.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And maybe if we do see what our fundage is in December, maybe we can incur some of these charges this December instead of next January.
Well, and I did do that. If you look back to December 2019, there's
This, yeah, the event center and
then the Jenna Cruise isn't going to occur until this year. So I tried to get as many expenses into December as possible. I mean, it's a timing thing, right? We can only pay when we get an invoice. So the invoices came in January.
And can someone refresh me? I believe there was a conversation about an honorarium. Was that something that was not accepted, or?
So there's paperwork that we need from Dr. Johnson to be
Sure.
submitted in order to pay
Right.
her the honorarium. Been trying to work with her to get through that, but have not received it
Okay.
yet. So, yeah, it
That'll
has not
be
been
another-
So that's
paid
a
yet.
future,
Out of this year?
Yep, yep.
At least we don't need to buy fans this year.
That's right. We've got those
True.
available.
Okay, any more questions about the budget?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I don't know if we approved the, did we, have we ever?
We don't, yeah, it's not a standard practice, but we can certainly put the stamp of approval on it. I don't
Okay.
think there's anything wrong with that. So,
Okay, I hear your motion, Sarah. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the budget? Say aye.
Aye.
It's not a budget, it was the
Or
report.
the report, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, we are going to move on to old business, item 6A, which is the Martin Luther King Jr. Human Rights Breakfast Recap. I'll just start out by saying thank you to everyone. I feel like this was our best year so far. We're learning things each year, and I really have gotten great feedback from people, from the community, and even people who couldn't attend and have been able to watch it online. So that's really nice, you know, to hear that they can still be a part of it. I guess I'll just kind of open it up and get people's comments and questions about it.
I think Sarah's notes are great. They're exactly what I had written down.
Excellent.
Yeah, so they're really good.
Yeah, I would say that in today's Chaska Herald, there's a great article about the MLK Breakfast and a little feature article about Barbara Colehap. So if you don't get the Herald, stop down in the library and pick one up.
And Nate sent it to us.
Yeah, he emailed it too.
I'm sorry, I've been working all afternoon. I didn't check my email.
okay. It's still worth checking out either way.
But
So
Yeah.
glad you
I read the
noted it.
paper.
Yeah.
Does that count?
That's
It's great.
the best way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Can we make this part of the minutes then, or?
Well, for sure, the reason I did this was because I was in, I was part of the note-taking process for the planning piece. And I thought for posterity's sake, we should probably have just kind of some thoughts about how we felt about the event, if there were any suggestions or changes or kind of flags to watch for next year. I would put it in that file. And so we could have it as a reference point. So
Really good.
But it would be great if you could send an electronic copy of that to Nate so he can include it with the minutes.
I did send an
Oh,
electronic copy
fantastic.
to
All
Nate and to Jennifer earlier today, asking them to
Fantastic. Sorry.
have a copy here.
As the note taker, just asking, so.
Yeah.
There was a couple things that I would hope to add to it.
Excellent.
One of the things was that for the planning piece of it, I think it's very important that we have a final meeting a week prior to the event, just to check off all the boxes to make sure that everything's covered. There was a few glitches, but everything turned out fine. But I think that maybe we would have caught some of them if we had met before, right before the event. And I know that's a busy time of year and it was hard to plan that, but we can figure something out for next year,
Are
hopefully.
you saying just the subcommittee?
Yeah,
Not the
yeah,
whole
just the subcommittee.
Are any glitches not visible on Sarah's notes, or what were the things you saw?
Well, I
too?
had spoken with Sarah, so we kind of had collaborated on some of these things. One thing I did talk to someone today, and they had asked about the food options, because some people just don't eat pastries. I told them that we were hoping to have some fruit, and because our partner from the chamber had volunteered for that when we planned and then was no longer there, that was one of the things that kind of slipped through the cracks, and hopefully that's something we would have noticed at one of our meetings that was right before, and we say, where's the fruit, you know? So just little things like that, we need to make a note of, yes, we do need other options. We had thought of that early on and then just kind of forgot about it. So hopefully next year we can incorporate some fruit in there for people who would like that instead.
I think we are right on in terms of the number of pastry units. I think, Nate, you and I counted the last box that was left. There was like maybe 10 or 12.
Yeah, something
So
like
I think the number, although factoring in nobody eats pastry, they wanted fruit, I don't know if that would have adjusted the final number, but certainly if we do that again, we should plan
that.
for
Yeah, we
that.
had 150 items
Yeah.
between Red Bench and El Paisano. Attendance was just over 200,
Yeah.
220, somewhere
Krista
in there.
said 240 yesterday, when
40.
I talked to Krista from the
Event
event center.
Okay. So, and I noticed a lot of people, like, the pastries from El Paisano in particular are enormous.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of people that were splitting those, and that was sufficient for folks. So I think that helped too.
I think something else we could add to our notes is, considering when we're putting it in the budget, that we could do, work something out with Dunn Brothers. As this has grown, the amount of coffee we're asking for is really, more than doubled. And so that, 150 cups of coffee is more significant than asking for, a small amount. So
I heard there was quite a bit of coffee left.
There
Is that-
was,
and I
there
didn't
was,
actually
I mean,
see
it
that
was
much.
less than half of
Okay.
each. Yeah, when we brought it back, there was, there was some left over, but not a ton.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know too. Yeah, I think there's,
Commissioner, needs your microphone in the center. There you go. Perfect.
I think there's discussion to be had, and I wouldn't shy away from just having the honest discussion with Dunn Brothers about that and, get an understanding. Maybe they want to be a sponsor, and I think that's really helpful, because we do have a limited budget, and I think if the event's going to continue to grow, that's an issue that we need to talk about. I don't think that the Human Rights Commission, unless if this becomes sort of your marquee event, that you decide that that's what you're going to put your budget to. But if it continues to grow the way that it has, and you want to be able to do other things, I think we're going to have to talk, be willing to go out and talk to people about sponsorships and contributing financially. And so I think, Dunn Brothers, I do know that they have a community ethic to them. I think it would be worth the ask or just the discussion to get clear and be in a comfortable place with them. But I think that's one thing that we're talking about after this event. I've had conversations with Matt and things about, okay, but I feel like we've gotten to a level here where we need to start thinking about other funding sources for this.
I certainly think.
And I think that feeds into also, I mean, my biggest concern out of this is how do we meet the bar that Dr. Johnson set with her keynote next year, and continue to at least approach that. And I think in order to do that, we're going to have to be offering some sort of honorarium, and we can't just count on people showing up to do that, because there are competing events that day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the discussion too. Are there businesses or other organizations in the community who would be willing to be a part of that? So
Initially, Southwest Metro offered to go out and find sponsors. When we were talking about, you'll recall, the full breakfast kind of venue. And at that time, there was the offer of, well, we could certainly ask some of our chamber members. So that certainly is an option, I think, if the chamber continues to sponsor this with us.
Yep.
And I sincerely hope that they do.
as far as my understanding is that they desire to, and I'll touch on this too later in the agenda. We're going to talk about Greencard Voices, but I'm working with them on potential sponsors for that as well. So that's definitely a role that they're interested in playing.
Good,
So
good.
yep.
But I think businesses in Chaska would be willing, even if they weren't members of the chamber.
I think community education would probably sponsor as well.
So,
This is exciting that it's grown so much and that we're, thinking about ways that we can keep it growing and bring in other partners with us, because I think it really has a community feel when you're in that room. So I would love to get as many people involved as possible.
Yeah, we've doubled attendance every year, so by that measure, I expect we'll have about 500 next year.
Yeah.
Who knows, but I don't know
What
if that's
room are you gonna put that in? That was something that we had talked about too, is that there were people that were actually standing through the whole thing. Even if we don't have enough tables for everyone, I think it would be good to have chairs around the room where people could just sit, because that got to be a long time to stand.
Yeah. I think I'm going to recommend that as we start thinking about 2020 and we're planning for that, I think it was very helpful to have the subcommittee working on that, meeting
I think so,
on
too.
a fairly regular basis to work through things. What I would suggest is I think it would be helpful to invite Krista, our event center manager, to be a part of that planning and join those meetings, so that she can sort of help us think through what's the right way to configure the room and have enough seating for overfill and that kind of thing. And I'm sure she'll gladly participate in that. So. And that'll help also with some of the other missteps that timing issues that we had, just to have her in the room so that, there's no way for that to get confused.
So we're all on the same page.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
great.
Okay. Anything else about that? Oh, I would like to say, we do not have to start tonight, but we should start soon with our planning for next year. Because I think that subcommittee was invaluable for getting the planning done. And we didn't have to take time at these meetings to do all the details and everything. So think about it, and then next month, maybe we can kind of form a subcommittee again to start meeting to gather ideas for next year.
And Madam Chair, if I could ask us all to think about potential speakers
Yes.
and be willing to share those names next month, because I was just thinking how, like Nate said, how do we top Dr. Johnson. So we'll need to do a good job to start searching.
Yes, and we can just kind of share those ideas next month,
Yeah.
okay?
Do
Okay,
you guys have anything? I mean, I know you weren't able to attend, but
No, unfortunately, the pink eye
pink eye.
stopped there, which
Yeah.
is great because I have an older daughter. No, the feedback that I've seen and heard has been overwhelmingly positive. The volume of attendees and the way the content was just very well received, you know, in a hearsay manner. But I wish I would have been able to be there. I'd planned to take my 6-year-old there, but I was stuck at home, so.
And I was in Orlando, so,
Oh,
yeah,
well,
for
gee.
work, so,
Oh.
so I couldn't be there for that. But yeah, I heard from the community just positive feedback.
Great.
So
well, we
that's-
can send you the link too if you want to watch it, then, I mean, Mike did a great job capturing it this year and using all his techno stuff to get the, kind of the feel of it. When I watched it, I still could remember, you know, how everything felt. And my mom actually watched it today, and she said, you know, she was talking about the feeling of the room and everything. And she wasn't at the event, but she watched it on the video. And so I'll send you the link because I think it's really worth watching. Okay, we'll move on to item 6B, the Greencard Voices, which we have talked about before. And just Nate, if you want to update us on anything new, you know.
Yep. So the Greencard Voices exhibit is a traveling, just a refresher, is a traveling exhibit that features people who are immigrants or refugees in the Twin Cities area. So it will feature a photo of an individual and then along with their story. And I think there's about 24 of those that are part of that make up the exhibit. So what we've done is they're committed to August of this year to come and be at the gallery space in the community center. And so what I've done recently is confirm that they're ready to go, they'll be here. But then also make sure that we're firming up our understanding of the cost. So $1,000 for the month to host the exhibit itself. And my understanding is you all, we talked about it in, I think, November when we last met, that something like 500 would be something that the Human Rights Commission would be willing to contribute. So that's kind of what I'm moving with. As I say that, I have had conversations with multiple people about starting to reach out and see if we can get some donations and sponsorships and things like that to help, you know, defer the cost. So at least to raise that additional 500 so that we've got the exhibit paid for. If we can get more, maybe that offsets some of what the Human Rights Commission is, you know, needing to contribute. I think the other piece is there's also programming that can accompany the exhibit. So that's optional, right? So we can just do the exhibit, it can stand on its own, and that's fine. But there's also programming like a Greencard Voices can work with their members or their participants to bring out and do a panel discussion with the community. So I would envision that to be somewhat similar to the transfer of memory when we had Judy Meisel out. And you know, that case, it was just her and her grandson that were talking, but, and this would be a panel discussion, but something, you know, that'd be the flavor of it. There's also opportunities to do, it's a game that it sounds like it's sort of, you set it up so you've got tables in the room, multiple tables. The game it's a card game that's in the center of the table. And you invite people to come, you know, hopefully sit at the table with people that you don't know. And the cards are, as you're playing the game, intended to sort of draw out your story of, you know, sort of what your background is and where you come from, and be able to share those things with each other. I haven't seen the game myself, so it's hard for me to really explain it, but when I talk to the Greencard Voices folks, they say that when they do it, it's very well received. It does encourage good, you know, conversation and things, and that, you know, people enjoy being a part of that. So I think that's another option. Generally speaking, to do these things, it's about $200 to $500, because we're paying for the time of the participants, we're paying for Greencard Voices and their support, and we're paying for people to travel here, and most of them live generally in the Twin Cities area, metro, but that's a big area. So those are the things that the costs are going to offset, and it just depends on the event. But I think that's another thing, as I talk to like the Southwest Chamber, for example, I think we could package that up and say, hey, do you want to be the sponsor of the panel discussion and approach businesses or community organizations in that way? So that's the intent, is to do that. My first focus is to try to make sure that we've got the exhibit paid for fully.
Sure.
And then if we can go beyond that, I think that's fantastic. So we'll try to do it as much as we can. I've also been talking to the library about this. Like they did for the Transfer of Memory event, they had a book display out of books that were about the Holocaust. So I think they're intending to do something like that. But we also talked about maybe there's an opportunity to have at least one of the photos and stories displays located at the library, so people can see that and sort of foster the discussion. Oh, you like that? Like there's 20 more of them up at the community center. You should go up there and check those out. So you can try and sort of cross promote that way. So that's one thing that we're talking about with the library as well.
One of the pieces of information that might be helpful or that ties in is the Chaska History Center this year will be doing an exhibit entitled Why Chaska? And it'll be looking at why the Native American to the immigrants from the European in the 1850s to 1970 to 2020, why people have selected Chaska as their home. And one of the things that we've talked about in that arena is partnering with Latino Voices. Latino Voices was here, came to our meeting back in the fall. Is that September or October? Time flies, sometime. And having them help the History Center develop that piece for individuals who may have immigrated to our community within the past 20 years. So just another piece of the pie, but also another organization that perhaps would be interested in participating with us on this.
Yeah. Great idea. Fantastic. I think in the more, even if we can coordinate at least the marketing for these things, right?
Yeah.
So they all relate together. And, the more we can kind of have multiple things going on, people can sort of tie that together, to maybe make an evening of it or something like that. They relate to each other. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Will we have, excuse me, will we have the opportunity to have someone from Greencard Voices come out to a Human Rights Commission meeting?
Yeah, we can.
Because we could invite some people from the different groups, maybe, the chamber and the History Center and things, so they can kind of hear what opportunities we can do if we have, the partners involved. And then kind of decide what we want to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that.
Have we talked about timing for when this would happen?
Yeah, it would be in August
August.
of this year. So that's just revolves around when the availability of the gathering space was. So that was really the only month of this year. It fills up quickly, so.
Well, that's not too far off when,
Right, yeah,
with
it'll
all
come
the
up soon, I would
planning,
think.
yeah. Okay,
Yep.
great. Anything else about Greencard Voices right now?
I would only ask, is there any role that we could play in soliciting those third-party sponsorships, or is there anything, it seems like you've got that underway, but being in,
If you've got connections to individuals or businesses or organizations, whatever, and want to, approach them, I think that'd be awesome.
okay.
Definitely take any help I can get in that effort, so.
Yeah, it would be great if we had an abundance of sponsors. Think of what we could do.
Yeah, I think an extension of that is, the MLK Breakfast, is if you're talking to people and you're trying to, it may not be the Greencard Voices that resonates with them, maybe it's the MLK Breakfast, or, we're starting to think about our next agenda item here is the Marnita's table that's scheduled for February 18th. What's the continuation extension of that? And if there is that, that's going to take participation financially from the community as well. So I think, if you're out talking to people and you feel comfortable, those are other things that you could offer up and at least build awareness about that. This is a thing that we're looking at and trying to figure out, and see if there's, folks that have an interest in being a part of that. I think that'd be super helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6C, which is an update on Marnita's table. The event will be on February 18th at the Event Center from 6 to 9. And this event is called Engage. It's going to focus on being involved with their community. So it will be a feast like we had last time where, everyone goes home not hungry, and a great time to talk with neighbors, talking about just different ways that we're involved in the community, maybe bringing things up to people that they didn't know that there was this group that meets, or, an activity that people participate in throughout the year. Kind of networking, but on a really neighborly level and a real community feel to it, I think I would describe it as.
Yeah, I think, I heard a lot of at the first one, people just trying to say, I want to get involved. I'm not exactly sure how. And, I'm coming out of that. What's next? How can we keep this going? Sort of a thing. I think a great way to do that is to get involved in the organizations and, different groups, community groups that already exist, and try to breathe life into that. And so I think that's part of what we want to try and talk about is, from the city side, there's a selfish element. I think that, hey, if we can get people to apply to serve on boards and commissions and be involved in that way, that would be great. But also we've got, our Lions Club, and we've got our Rotary Club, and we've got League of Women's Voters, and, there's all sorts of community organizations that exist, and
As well as
are always looking for new
organizations
involvement.
that need volunteers
Right.
too. We're hoping people can find out ways they can volunteer within the community. Sometimes you think, you need to go down to Minneapolis to do something or whatever. So, there are things right in Chaska.
Yep.
So everyone is welcome, and there is a flyer in your packet.
I think what I can do is, you can download the flyer. I think you should be able to download it off of the web, off of the agenda that was sent out. But I can follow up too and send as an attachment in an email. I'd encourage you all to invite people. And I think a lot of what brought people to the event last time was those personal invitations. We did a lot of broad advertising of it. We'll do that again. But we also put a lot of effort into trying to send emails or, call people or, mention it when you're meeting with people, and invite them to join and, let them know, hey, I think you would be a really good, a really good person to be at this event because you had a good perspective. It'd be great for you to learn about how you can get involved in the community. You try to put that personal message behind it and encourage folks to come. And I think you all, that'd be a great role and a great way to help out with this event.
Yep.
And I think another thing I love about the event we had before and this one coming up is that it's super accessible to anyone. There's no cost to it. It's from 6 to 9, but if you can only come for a half an hour, come for that. I think you still get something out of it.
Absolutely.
There is, on the flyer, there is an email address to RSVP. just so they have an idea of how many people are coming. But it's not necessary if you decide that night that you want to show up, just show up. And also, if you do email that and you need help with transportation, they can arrange for a ride for you to get there. So we want everyone who wants to come to be there.
Last time, excuse me,
I
Commissioner.
was just gonna say, after the breakfast, I collected a lot of the flyers.
Yes.
Do you have some that I could maybe get 10 or 15 from you?
Yeah, I'd have to check after the meeting, I can run back. I'll see if there's any on Kevin's desk, that's where they landed. So, but if not, we can print more out and get them to you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I did too. I did table pickup, so I've got about 10 in my possession, but I'm not sharing any with you, Ellen.
And I gave them all to Nate.
There you have it, yeah.
Just papered the
We
town.
can get you some, no problem. And if anyone else wants some,
Sure.
just let me know.
One of the things I was going to share, when I called and I talked with Lauren at Marnita's table, I said, I pledged to bring 10 people with me. So put my name down and say that there will be 12 people for your planning purposes. I didn't get all 10, or even 12, but I did get 8. So if you're thinking about encouraging others to come with you, make sure that they know for planning purposes. So Nate, what will happen after Marnita's table this time?
Nate, what will happen after?
Hopefully good things is what we're hoping for. That's what we're talking about, and I think we're gonna be engaging in some discussions here with local boosters to see if we can raise money to help with that. I think, you know, the city, on the city side, we're talking about continuing to try and, you know, contribute to at least do maybe one Marnita's Table event a year, and, you know, as an annual thing. You know, that's a dialogue that we're gonna have after this, to see, you know, how can we continue to sustain the momentum. One of the things leading up to this, there will be a training on February 7th.
Yeah.
All day long, so I think it's, do you remember the time, Jen? 10 to
It's 10 to 4.
4, at the community center. And so there are some staff from the city that are going to that, staff from the school district that are going to that, and I know there's some members from ROAR that are going to be attending that as well. It's an introductory training on how to do a Marnita's Table style event. Marnita's been, you know, sort of cautious with that to say, look, you're not going to come out of this training being an expert and ready to go off and, you know, conquer one of these things. But you'll have some good insight into, you know, what goes into these events and how to go that, you know, route. Now, if someone is desiring to be, you know, doing these events on their own, there's a lot more training that needs to be gone through, you know, to really be prepared for it. But that is something that's going on, with the hope, right, that we're better prepared to kind of continue the momentum with that knowledge gained. There are a couple spots open still, and I did talk to Jackie Johnson at Community Education. If anyone is interested, we could have 2 more people from the Human Rights Commission join for that day. So Jen is going already, so there's and the reason I guess I say 2, it relates to the number of spots, but also, you know, having a quorum at that event. I think it would be better just to keep it to 3.
I will be there if that affects your numbers.
You will be there?
Yes.
Okay, so 1 more maybe from the Human Rights Commission, so,
Yeah.
yep. So you don't have to let me know right now, but if you're available that day and have interest, just shoot me an email. We'll go from there
And it's at the community center.
at the community center, yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6D. We are going to review attendance expectations. I think just at the beginning of the year, we'll start with fresh slate, and I think it's good to just kind of talk about what the expectations are for commissioners. And I'm on the wrong page.
Page 11.
Yes, thank you. I think it's, pretty, everyone can read what was in the handbook that is sent out to us when we become commissioners. But I think the main thing is that in general, that commissioners are expected to be at most meetings, and 3 meetings a year are like not really a big deal. We all have busy lives. We have things that are going on. But if it's more than 3, then we need to talk about if this is working out for your schedule, or if maybe you want to leave your spot so that someone else can apply to be a commissioner. The other thing I would like to say about attendance is just to make sure that you let either Nate or myself know when you can't attend, so that we know who's coming that night. We make sure we have a quorum. That hasn't really been a problem or anything, but just, it's nice to know who's going to be at each meeting. Anyone else have anything to add about that? Okay. Moving right along, we will move to item 7A, which is a discussion about the officers of the commission. We're kind of in a weird spot tonight because we can have this discussion, but we can't really vote on anything tonight, or I would prefer if we wait till next month. I had my interview with City Council last month. Was it in December, or was it early January?
The first meeting.
Early
in
January,
yeah.
just to renew my second term. But they have not met since then, and so no commissions have been voted on if I'm officially a commissioner for this term. So I would like to talk about the roles that people wish to serve in or not serve in, Kaylee. And then next month, we can just make it a quick agenda item so that we can just vote on who the officers are in the positions here.
So the option, or I guess the opportunities, right, are chair, vice chair. So the chair right now is Jen, vice chair right now is Commissioner Carlson. Treasurer, which has historically been a role that I've filled just out of convenience. And then secretary, which Commissioner Haga has done now, I think, for the last couple of years. Before that, traditionally was me. And so I'm happy to continue that effort. I've filled in on occasion
Admirably.
as well, so try to do my best. But those are the 4 that are out there. So for you to sort of think through, whether you have interest in all that. The other thing I think to think about, and maybe we bring finality to this one at the February meeting as well, is that with former Commissioner Leggett, his spot being open, traditionally what will happen is one of the alternates moves into, if there is an alternate, in this case we've got 2, into that vacated position. The way that has been done in the past is to look at who's got the most seniority, I believe, and that's looking at when appointment occurred. Unless I'm mistaken, I think you both were appointed at the same council meeting, so.
So now we go by hours?
What's that?
Now we go by hours?
Well, yeah, I think we go by who was listed first on the agenda that evening when they were, no, I'm kidding.
Just gotta say,
Down
really?
to the minutes?
Yeah, I gotta go visit the council meeting minutes.
It goes by last name, SC, so.
Yeah. So in this case, I don't have a quick, easy solution for you guys other than maybe talk it through, see if you can arrive at some sort of consensus together. I don't know, we could do an arm wrestling competition or something. Or maybe the commission sort of has a discussion about that if you've got an opinion. But I think because, I'm introducing this topic tonight and there's, a discussion maybe to be had, I would recommend that, we could easily just bring, if you're feeling like you want to make a decision on that one tonight, that's fine. If you want to wait until February, that's cool too, so.
Well, I was thinking, because, you know, how far I work, and I would gladly just stay as an alternate as of for right now. Just because of that fact, I work all the way in St. Paul, and say, for example, there's a snowstorm or something, I think you work a lot closer to
I
here.
work from home most of the time.
Oh, well, that's even better.
Yeah.
And I was saying, just from that standpoint, I think I would stay alternate, just because of that, because it's dedicated that, you know, you have a person for a quorum to actually somebody be here and not say if they have to go for a meeting or something or be a little late. So I would be gladly to step aside and just stay alternate, if that's okay with the rest of the commissioners.
Well, and piggybacking on that, I would say anytime that you have been here as an alternate, you've still been able to
Yeah.
be a big part of this group and get to vote, because we usually do have someone who can't make it on any given night. So I think it's really just kind of a title that you
Yeah, it's just a,
semantics.
yeah, totally like that. But that, I'd say just for, you know, for just semantics purposes, just to do it like that, because that's probably the fair way to do it.
That's very gracious. I think the committee would be, or commission would be well served if you were in the role, but I would happily accept if the commission is willing to do that. But yeah, like you said, Jen, or Commissioner, Chairperson.
You can call me Jen.
Thank you. I've certainly felt heard from the alternate role, and I imagine you have as well. So whichever capacity you'll have us in, or me in, I'm happy to serve.
Exactly. So,
Great. Do we decide on that tonight?
We can, yeah.
It sounds
I feel
like-
there's a consensus emerging here, so.
So do we need a motion for that?
Mhm.
Okay. Do I have a motion for a newly promoted, or what is that called?
I'd say moving from alternate to
permanent, right?
permanent.
Yeah.
Permanent?
Yeah.
Are we permanent?
Permanent to commissioner.
We all
Or,
do.
no, alternate to commissioner.
I'm not
Correct.
reading it
I'll make that motion,
though. Okay,
however you want to phrase that.
thanks. I'm shaking with power.
I know.
I'll second.
it then.
Oh.
Okay, so all in favor of moving Seth Spreadberry from alternate to commissioner for 2020, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Oh, so that's-
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
There we go. And so now where we're at is we would have a vacant alternate position. And we have so far only had Commissioner Welbert apply to the Human Rights Commission through the ongoing application process that's going on. So unless if someone applies, we will continue to have a vacant alternate position. And for you all to understand, appointments can occur at any point during the year. We usually will do sort of a push at the end of any calendar year so that we can do a round of interviews right away in January and try to fill in any sort of vacancies that happen, because that's when, you know, a term ends is December 31st of a year. But, you know, if there's a vacancy, and sometimes vacancies come during the course of a year because someone moves, they have to resign for some reason, or one that isn't filled, and so maybe someone emerges as a candidate.
I joined in
who
May,
wants to apply.
the
Yeah,
year I
yep.
joined.
So I guess I just throw that out there, if you know of people who have some sort of interest, or folks who you think would be a good representative on the Human Rights Commission, you know, encourage them to apply. Oftentimes, you know, people may not take that extra leap unless they're given a push, and so I think it's always helpful to do it that way. So if you've got some thoughts on that, you know, feel free to offer that up. I have had one person, and I think he may be affiliated with Latino Voices, who's been sort of conversing with me about trying to apply, but have not seen the application yet. So I think that would be, you know, fantastic to have that perspective added to the Human Rights Commission. But, you know, vacancy remains, so encourage
So-
people to apply.
Hopefully, we get lots of applications for that spot.
Yeah, right.
As far as, let's do the easy ones. As far as the treasurer, then Nate, I would love it if you would continue with that one. The secretary, I understand, Kaylee, you would prefer not to do that this year? Does anyone else really have a need to take the minutes at these meetings? Nate's saying, yes, please.
No, it's really happy to do it if you all prefer for me to do it. It's not a problem.
I don't see anybody jumping
Yeah, I
for that
don't either.
opportunity.
I think that you're being given that role.
All right.
Do we have to go through each of these with a motion? Or we aren't voting
Neither.
tonight? We aren't voting
Either,
tonight.
neither of
Never
those
mind.
technically require a motion anyway. It's chair and vice chair, I think is what we have
Oh,
talked about.
okay. But we aren't voting tonight, so
Right,
we're
so-
discussing. For vice chair, do we have other people that are interested in that role? Or Sarah, are you interested in continuing with that role?
Of course. But
Is anyone else interested in that role? In chair or vice chair, for that matter? It is crickets in here right now.
maybe between now and our next meeting.
Right.
Yeah, we'll contemplate it, look at the
Sure.
responsibilities.
Consider your options.
Absolutely.
I mean, now, Seth, you could go for any of these roles if you want.
Right,
so.
no, I understand. Being 9 months in, I would like to maybe get another year under my belt before a leadership position I felt would be right for me, so. And I think there's plenty of qualified candidates to your left as well.
Okay, I agree with you. You look like you were gonna say something.
I think, I would encourage everyone to think it through, and we can bring up the conversation in February and come with a final decision. And that said, if anyone becomes inspired to become secretary over the course of the next month,
Sorry.
just gonna throw that out there.
Get an urge to type
Nice try.
quickly. Okay, so we'll bring that up again next month so that we can vote on those. The other thing that I wanted to discuss tonight is that we have been trying to come up with goals and kind of an overall theme for the year. In previous years, we've looked at things like affordable housing and homelessness, and we've looked at race and equity. And I think that by having a theme, it doesn't mean that we have to do every event and activity based on that theme, but it kind of gives us a roadmap of things we can stick to, look for different activities that relate to that.
Is there still more we can do with the census?
That was gonna be one
Still
of my questions.
coming up, promoting it,
Our resident expert on the census is in Mexico right now. She is not here. But I think that that's something that we can talk to her about next month, because I think I heard that the letters from the census will come in the mail to us in Minnesota in March. So, I mean, we do have a little bit of time, and I can connect with Judy when she's back in town to see if there's anything that we should be aware of, that maybe we could talk with Nate through email, and he could send stuff out to us if Judy thinks of something.
Yeah, I think there's probably things that can be done to try and promote and encourage people to participate. Just keep in mind as you're thinking about a theme for the year, a lot of times I think where the theme has really been on display the clearest has been at the Human Rights Commission booth at the River City Days. That has sort of driven the theme for that booth the last couple of years, in addition to other activities that we've done. But so the census will be complete by that point in time, and if you're intending to use the theme for that, And I think, you know, the other point there is the census is, I think, as of April, although, you know, they start sending out the ability to, you know, submit your information and things, I think in March. It's as of April 1 or something like that, if I'm right. And so, you know, that only gives us really 4 years or 4 months, I'm sorry, 4 months of theme. So.
My primary reservation to that would be, actually, from my experience at River City Days, I felt like we were representing the census and not representing Chaska. I think if we folded that into what does the census mean to the residents of Chaska, I think that might be better, but it seemed like we were just promoting, yes, do the census, do this, and we were glad-handing and clapping for the census rather than for the Human Rights Commission.
Maybe not a theme, but I could see like a letter to the editor and that kind of a thing, like the commission encouraging folks to make sure that they're filling out their information and stressing the importance of it. Maybe do something along those lines.
idea.
I don't know how to roll or identify this into a theme, but a lot of what we seem to be doing is getting to know people in the community. So is there some way to make a theme about knowing your neighbors, meeting your neighbors, getting to know everybody, you know, people around you? Again, I don't know how to put that into a theme, but is that?
Sort of like the Marnita's table, engage, like, kind of like that, like,
Yeah, and even the
Getting-
theme that Sarah was talking about, the History Center is doing, there is a lot of focus on all of the different people here in our community and who we are, and maybe it's time to reach out and get to know who these people are. And so,
I also wouldn't want to walk away or say, you know, we solved the equity issue.
oh, yeah. You must have read that letter to the editor. Boy.
So I like thinking about a theme, but I thought about it today and thinking about, okay, 2020 is here. What can we talk about? And to say, oh, yes, we have this new topic, suggests that race and equity in Chaska has just been resolved. Everything's fine, everything's great. And I don't believe that we are there yet.
There's a huge misunderstanding about what equity means and is, so I agree, you're right. We're not behind, that's not behind us.
No.
Well, I mean, I guess my perspective is that a different theme doesn't mean that we've dismissed or left that work behind. I mean, I think that work is fundamental to the commission, and we should be engaging in those discussions and figuring out ways to support conversations around that regardless of what our theme is. That said, I think there's a way to weave together that equity piece with like why Chaska and who we are. So I think if that was sort of the overarching theme, there are ways to still weave in that work and that advocacy piece there, and just coming at it from different angles, which I think is also effective if we're not hitting the same place all the time.
What about just simply community education, just for our theme for the year? Like we can have more, say for example, expend our money towards more panels. Like for example, what's probably gonna be a huge topic is religion. Like we can have like a panel for like, you know, have different religious leaders and just speak at that and just have different events, like say per quarter or every other month. So we can actually maximize our funding, plus also getting out in the community and have more community education, because that should be our focus, is educating the community on different cultures, religions, or even ethnicities. Like say, for example, the Native American community. We don't talk about them enough, but they're a growing population in our community. So why not talk about them more? Like actually like the Latin communities, African American communities, even African born. So just have more education around that. And just that's be our theme just for the year, just educating the community. That's just my thoughts on it.
educating the community about our neighbors. Yeah.
And frankly, that ties back into the census when you look at the demographics of, you know.
I
the
think
demographics
all
of
of
the
these
census.
things kind of tie,
Right,
you
which
know.
makes sense because
Yeah.
we're a focused entity.
Right.
But
It's hard to put into like one little tagline though.
Right. I think we're all understanding what we're saying, but there's not like a word that I've thought of that kind of encompasses it.
Yeah, it's nothing overarching. Yeah, exactly.
Send it to the marketing department.
Do we have one of those?
Kevin.
Oh,
yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah. When in doubt, just throw Kevin's name out.
It's pretty much what we do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Neat. why don't you send Kevin an email and kind of describe what we've discussed and see if he can
I can talk to him and see
think
if
of a
he's got any-
word.
Understanding,
Oh.
Yeah.
just simple as that, understanding. Engagement's another good one, too. Not to say we can't have two words, understanding
Right,
and engagement.
right. But I think that it just kind of, it really gives us kind of a path for how we decide what kind of events we're gonna sponsor and,
Focuses, yeah.
yeah. Well, and I think that does a nice job of still continuing other themes that we've had before, so. Does everyone feel okay about having that as kind of our focus coming up?
I think if we
Even
can
though
think
it's-
about it, sleep on it, maybe
Right.
something will pop up.
Yes, as soon as anyone thinks of like the perfect marketing slogan, please let us know.
Well, I'll offer this up if you're, as you're thinking through, over the next month, and you come up with ideas or slogans or taglines or whatever you want to call it, just email them to me. I can compile them, and we could share those at the February meeting and discuss, which one we like or mash them together or however we go about it. And I'll talk to Kevin, and, other creative folks
The
that work here
utmost
at the
faith in
city and
Kevin.
see if we can come up with any ideas too. But
Good.
Well, we will,
Oh, well, before we leave that topic,
yes,
one of the things we also talked about last year was partnering with District 112. And I know that in extended ways, we've been doing that, but, and this, I'm just throwing this out, is there other ways that the Human Rights Commission can partner with District 112 that we haven't done yet, that possibly we could incorporate into our yearly activities? Just,
one thing I had thought about, and I know this would be a city council decision, but I know some commissions have a student representative on their commission. I think it would be very valuable to have a young person on this commission, just to give a different perspective about what the community is about, and just having a younger person's, view on things. I think that could be something that would be a way to partner at least with one student from the district. They have high schoolers on different commissions.
yeah, right now our Parks Board has a student board member.
They have voting rights?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
What did you say, Kim?
I asked if they have voting rights,
Oh, okay.
because like the student reps in the school board don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have to check to be sure, but I think that person does. But that's the only board/commission that the city has that has, and that position is, dedicated or, desired to have a student in that position.
I think
But,
the
I mean,
nature
that
of this
provides a
commission is that, we're not making decisions about city policies or anything like that, like the planning commission might be advising on that kind of thing. I think having, a more diverse group of people can only enrich this commission. But
would there be a way to ask city council
Yes.
to consider that option?
Yes, I can ask that.
Thank you. That's a good idea.
Well, you brought up the schools and my mind went there. And we will think about other ways that we
Yeah.
could maybe,
I think, continue to involve, the connection with the speech team for the MLK event, the jazz ensemble. I think those are two great ways that we were able to involve, the high school and really highlight some students and their talents at that event. So I think that's another example of one that we're currently doing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think it's a good question to keep thinking about. How can we do that? How can we get our young folks and our youth involved in the community?
The mayor looked so proud in the photograph of him taken with the football team.
Oh,
And I mean, I thought, okay, wouldn't it be great if the city council members were as proud of our commission and the work that we do as they were obviously of the football team? So which then it jumped into how we said we were going to be partners with the District 112, and how can we do that? Obviously, well, I'm not going to be playing football, but how can we be more engaging? So that the citizens of Chaska know that we exist and that we're helpful, or that we can be helpful to organizations that have been in the news so much this past year, like the district.
I think it would also offer an opportunity to students who are not necessarily on a football team or whatever team
Sure.
to shine in different ways, and to be a part of the community. So they do have opportunities to come meet with city council and be recognized for their contributions to
Yeah.
the community. That was a good point to bring up. Thank you for thinking of that. Does anyone else have other business that they want to discuss tonight? No. Okay. Our next meeting date will be February 27th on a Thursday, and I hope to see you all there.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.